So we're going to talk about the 3 energy pathways in the body. Most of us know one, and that's because if you had answered the other way about long distance running or cycling or things of that endurance type, athlete type things, everybody knows that there's one that looks it's a curve like this, right? And this is like your power axis, and this is like over time. You ever seen an XY axis? They gotten that far in school yet? Okay, good. So this is your X axis and your Y axis, right? So that over time, like at about 10 minutes, you get up to a point, and we'll call that, I don't know, 60-65%, where you can like hold that level of energy output for a long period of time, as long as you've eaten well and slept well and you have enough water, right? So you ever go on a run with your mom when she's training for the marathons?
She bikes along with us when we run.
Okay, right. So when you first get on the bike or whatever, you might feel a little sluggish and it hurts a little bit, but after a while it feels really good, and then you feel like you can go forever. I'm putting words in your mouth, but yes, maybe? Feel like that? Okay. Oh, you're the opposite? It feels good at the beginning? For most of us, when like we start a run or we start a bike, like all creaky and our body hasn't figured out that we're going to be doing like a long distance run or whatever, so it like fights us for about 10 minutes, and then we get like things get really good. We start creating endorphins for painkillers, and we start getting our breathing down and our pace right and all that kind of stuff, and then we can go for a long period of time depending on how hard we've trained. Okay, so a lot of people know this as the aerobic pathway. Aerobic means that we have to have oxygen to kind of like work the muscles. Cool. We call this oxidative. Oxidative, right? And it is aerobic in nature. Means that I need oxygen in which to do this type of activity. Luckily, we're on Earth. There's plenty of it here. There's also a lot of nitrogen, like 78%, just so you know. I won't talk to you about air composition right now. Mainly because like 12% of it is that yellow pollen stuff right now, I think. Okay. Now, do you think that's the same energy pathway that the big Russian weightlifter that can put 400 pounds over his head? Does he use this one too? No. So his power output is going to be more like maximal 100%. How long do you think he can do that for?
Not very long.
Not very long, like seconds, right? So maybe 2 to 3 seconds. So his graph looks like this. His energy pathway looks like this, 2 to 3 seconds. Cool? All right, that is vastly different than this one, right? As far as how long, what the outburst is on the body, how much time's elapsed. And there's actually a third energy pathway that we can do at about, did they say 80 or 85%? I like to think it's about 82.5 to 85%.
Yeah,
You passed the test, right?
yeah, but they had 50. The other guy was 50 and then 70. I think is what.
50 and 70? Okay, so anyway, okay, we'll call this, I'm going to call it 80.
That works, yeah.
Just because, again, you can train this up. And this is called the glycolytic deal. And what it does is allows you to go for maybe really 1 to 3 minutes. Okay? And it can allow you to go 70 or 80% of your red line. Okay? That means you can't go all out, but you can go a lot better than your like conversational paced bicycling ride. Okay? This one is called glycolytic. And this one's called phosphogenic. And the reason I even bring these up, because they won't be on the test, is the fact that if I just train on the oxidate, okay, and these are both, I probably need to make this clear, these are both anaerobic in nature. Okay, anaerobic means it doesn't need oxygen, right? And that's okay. That means you can do them in space. Actually be a lot lighter in space. But the key here to this whole thing is if I just train on this one energy pathway, what do you think happens to my strength and my glycolytic strength? Will they go up or down?
Down.
Yeah, they go down a lot, right? So if you're thinking about those thin Kenyan runners or something like that, they are built to do this all day long. They don't lift weights a lot. They just run a ton. Cool? Now, what happens if I just kind of lift weights really heavy and do glycolytic type stuff? What happens to my oxidative line? Does it go up or down?
Down.
It does go down, but it doesn't go down very much. Okay? So while if you just do this, these go, they like plummet. This goes down just a little bit. Okay? So, in like a 2 or 3 hour bike ride, how many times do you think your legs go around the same repetitive cycle? Or how many steps do you think you take for a marathon?
5,300.
5,300? Pretty close. Let's multiply that by about 10, right? It's the same motion over and over and over, right? And that can lead to having really sore ankles or whatever. It's called repetitive stress syndrome when you kind of like do too much of it. Cool? So if we keep our workouts really short, instead of having to work out for 2 to 3 hours, we can get back to our family and do whatever, and we won't risk as much injury. So that's why we, here at CrossFit Dynamo, keep most of our workouts looking like in this area because it doesn't hurt your long distance stuff. Now, if your mom does start training for a marathon, I'm going to tell her to keep doing CrossFit and every once in a while do a long run just so she can get used to, one, the amount of mental fatigue that happens, and two, so she can figure out what she can digest. Because like sometimes I've been on like 8 to 10 hour bicycle rides. At the beginning of the day, I'm like shoveling, omelets and big protein bars and really stuff that takes a long time to digest. By the end of it, I can't even take in Gatorade, right? It's just like water, maybe a goo, like something that breaks down really easily, because that's just how my body works for a long distance thing. So you need to know how that is, but most of my training, I still want to keep in short, high intensity intervals. Remember the Serengeti? Yeah, okay. So that's my main point. That's why CrossFit works. One of the reasons CrossFit works, right? Yeah, this will work. We're doing a workout today called Kelly, right? Kelly, I think I threatened you with doing it after this talk, right? Kelly, let's see if this gets in the frame. Yeah, that's in the frame. Is 400-meter run. It is 30 box jumps. It is 30 wall balls.
5 times?
5 times, 5 rounds per time. But what I wanted to make sure we understood here is this is an extremely glycolytic type workout. Now it takes a long time and people think it's going to be really endurance-y. And to some degree it is, especially later on when you're not going as hard as you are at the beginning. But the point I want to make is a 400-meter run, for most of us in here, takes 2 to 3 minutes. Okay? 2 to 3 minutes is at the end of that glycolytic cycle. Okay? 30 box jumps, most of us can do 15 box jumps in a minute, so that's about 2 to 2.5 minutes for box jumps. When you're fresh, with me so far? That's in that glycolytic time frame. 30 wall balls is a squat and a press, right? So that's quads and shoulders. This is like posterior, like your hamstrings to some degree. This is quick twitch calf and Achilles and a little bit of hamstring and glute. Okay, and this is the back part of your body. This is wall balls are like the front part of your body and your shoulders. With me so far?
Yes.
So if this takes 2.5 to 3 minutes, this takes 2 minutes. 30 wall balls should take about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. They're all kind of in this glycolytic area. Okay, and the point I want to make is your body's like a battery. You got a cell phone? Okay. So in the morning it's all charged, and what's the battery look like? What color is it?
Green.
Green, right? And then like by mid-morning, if you haven't charged it up, where's it go? It's down in yellow?
It's dead.
It's dead? Okay, you got a bad battery.
Yeah.
But hopefully by mid-morning, it's only like creeped into the yellow, depending on how much you've used it, how many applications are up, and all that kind of stuff. So far, so good. Then what happens if you don't charge it for like 3 days?
Dead.
Red. It's either red or dead, right? So the deal here is, if I stay on like this, some cardio here with some, posterior, and then I go to Achilles and calves and abs, right? And if I think of each part of my body as a separate battery, right? I'm going to be using different systems or batteries in my body to do each one of these. And most of my workouts are going to work a battery for 1 to 3 minutes, sometimes less, depending on how fit they are. And then I'm going to switch to another battery while that one recharges, right? Because when you're not using your phone, right, sometimes, even if you don't plug it in, sometimes it'll recharge. Ever seen that? It's like crazy. But when your body, right, so you can do something and do something and do something and then you have to rest, but then you can do it again. So when you have to rest, your battery's gone down to red. But when you rest and then you can do it again, it's recharged itself. It's accessing more fuel from your body. Okay, so far? So what I do is I try to switch around in my workouts, going from battery to battery to battery system, so that while you're doing something here, you're recharging something else. Okay? And that allows you to get more work done overall in the period of time. The more work I can get done in the period of time, that's called power, and that's what gives us our intensity. Okay? Super boring, right?
Yes.
It blew my mind, though. I really like this stuff. Okay, so those are your 3 energy pathways, and that's why we keep our workouts nice and short and always switching with our rep schemes. Thus endeth the lesson.